So my name is Izhaarbir Singh. It's not a common name, so everyone always tends to mess up a little bit. But Izhaarbir Singh. I've completed my master's thesis on the topic of Sikh ethics, and I'm particularly focused on love and desire. What is ethics? If you understand that the line drawn represents society's laws, we're talking about the line up there, or for an organization, the rules, codes, and procedures, then ethics is something that generally lies somewhere above this. Religions and philosophies help us mold our behavior and give us an ethics to go above and beyond what is minimally required as a decent human being. We hear in the news all the time situations where the following the procedures wasn't enough. People needed to have done more. For example, Joe Paterno followed procedures by reporting Jerry Sandusky, but ethically, most of us feel he should have done more. Existentialism and Sikhi. In my paper, I talk about Sikh philosophy is Sikh existentialism. A clear example of this philosophy is the Panopticon prison designed by Jeremy Bentham. He was a British philosopher. The idea of this model is that the guard tower in the middle contains one guard and overlooks all the cells surrounding it. No prisoner knows when he's being watched and cannot interact with other prisoners. Therefore, the prisoner begins acting in such a way that he believes he's being constantly watched. The idea is that the ultimate security is a prisoner who guards himself. When we look at Sikhi, the core idea that resonates is regulating oneself and knowing that Waheguru is always around us, watching us. Janyaya Buryaya, Vache Dharam. So there's three principles that overlap between existentialism and Sikhi. One, human being approaches life essentially in human and not in any other terms. As Guru Nanak is known for saying, there is no Hindu, there is no Muslim. Human beings are free agents. Karmiya poapri kenere gedu. Through one's actions, one is determining her future in relation to Waheguru. Human dilemmas are morally subjective because they are always enveloped by an environment and a context. In Sikhi, we don't have 10 commandments. What we do have is an underlying principle that guides our behavior. We also know that the Panopticon example eventually falls apart in terms of Sikhi because the emotion underlying the personal model is fear and coercion. In Sikhi, we do not see the world as a prison, but as our oyster, full of opportunity. Waheguru is not our warden, Waheguru is our lover. So what's love got to do with it? Love is the underlying principle of Sikhi. In Japji Sahib, Guru Sahib asked, what do I need to do or say to make myself desirable to Waheguru? Today is Valentine's Day. This is the same question many of us have been trying to answer to make our Valentines desire us. What gift do I give? What poem do I write? What do I wear? Guru Sahib says precisely this. These are human emotions and connections. Ultimately, Guru Sahib says that it is our actions that decorate us and make us look desirable because even in human terms, it's not the gifts we give or the words we say. It is what we do that makes us desirable. As we can see, what I'm interested in is understanding the human terms in which love and desire are discussed in Gurbani. We sometimes make Gurbani something distant from us, as something otherworldly that we have to reach toward. What I've found in studying these sources is that Gurbani, Shabad, speaks in real human terms and emotions, and that if we pay attention, can help us with our daily lives, in our day-to-day matters and relations. While I don't have the time to go into detail on my study of each of the sources, I can share the lessons learned. Love is the most powerful emotion, and nothing can control it. No person, no institution, not even religion. An example of this is from Bhai Gurdas Ji's Wad, Wad number 27, 40 number 1. This is a wad that talks about famous lovers in the Punjab, in the folklore. Lala Majnu, Hiranja, Soni Mahibal. And one of the interesting stories that I found was Soni Mahibal. Soni was someone who loved an individual who belonged to a different caste, and her father didn't like that, so he forced her to marry someone else. When she studied her story, every night she cheats on her husband and travels across the river to be with the person that she loves. It's interesting that by Gurdasi is bringing up this example, and if you read the translations, a lot of times people try to cover this aspect of what is happening in this love story. It's interesting that Bhai Gurdasi writes about it. The second lesson is desire is a part of love and not separate from. One of the sources that I had was Puran Singh's Bride of the Sky. It's a play that he wrote. I don't believe it's in print anymore, but you can find it online. If you just Google search it, Bride of the Sky. And in there, his protagonist makes the following statement: could that be sin which gives such lasting pains of pleasure? The third lesson is love and freedom are one and the same. Sikh existentialism must be grounded in love. In another part of Puran Singh's play, one of his characters makes the following statement: is not love and freedom one? Heaven is freedom. It is love, and there is no restraint on love here. You are dreaming of earth as earth sometimes dreams of heaven. Love is beyond all sense of possession, beyond all needs of sense. It is self-realization of God in beauty. And the final lesson is that human love is a means of understanding divine love. It is not different from or inferior to divine love. And my favorite example of this is by V. Singh's poem that I had an English translation of. The English translation was done by Professor Nikki Singh. The title of the poem is Desire for the Beloved. The cowgirl's longing for Krishna that people speak of, Sasi writing for her Punna, that the desert sands report. Here's angst for Ranja, or Majnu's sickness. These do not display love, these hide a deep mystery. O formless one, isn't this the desire you ignited at the beginning of time? Is this not the spark you set in every heart? Our desire to meet you is our longing from you. When your mystery strikes us, we become crazy for you. First, my thesis and analysis of love and desire affects Sikh youth involved in relationships. Essentially, if we understand that love and desire are basic and necessary human emotions, that denial of them is harmful to both individuals and society, then we understand that we need to develop safe spaces and practices for Sikh youth to get to know each other. Right now, oftentimes, Sikh youth end up in secret relationships that they do not tell their parents or family about because of various cultural taboos. And in effect, this creates dangerous situations for the youth. My thesis affects members of the community who identify as LGBT. This is because my analysis of love and desire shows that desire and love go together. Hence, it does not make sense to call one person's love of another as strictly desire or love. Furthermore, my exploration of Sikhi sources proves that there's much more openness to the acceptance of sexuality, of human emotions and desires, which contradicts the conservative nature of Punjabi household attitudes. Finally, my thesis affects the nature of Sikh governance and organization. I will come to this again soon. For 2 years, I had served as a project director for an anonymous service called Sikh Talk. Sikh Talk offered its anonymous question and answering service as a means for Sikh youth to ask and receive answers for difficult and personal questions, which they would not receive elsewhere. The reason I share this is because I want to share, and I want for you to understand, that LGBT individuals are part of the Sikh community. They are practicing Sikhs, and this may come as a surprise to you, but some are also Amritdhari. The following are general constructions of the types of questions and comments we received at Sikh Talk. What punishment should I receive? How can I repent? Why has Vaheguru made me this way? People in my community laugh at people like me. What did I do in a past life? What Karam led to this? You can see from these questions that these individuals are all highly reflective and meditative about their own selves and how society treats them. These are practicing Sikhs being made to feel inferior to everyone else around them. Why? Because they love someone that society doesn't approve. Doesn't this narrative sound familiar? The statement that made me the most upset, that made me lose sleep, was a Sikh individual identifying as LGBT and saying, "I want to kill myself. I've contemplated suicide." This makes me upset because there's absolutely no reason at all, regardless of what your opinion may be about homosexuality or whatever else, that anyone should ever be made to feel that the only solution to end the way they are, because they can't be any other way, is for them to kill themselves. It is unacceptable that as a community of Sikhs, we have created an unhealthy environment where people cannot be who they are and receive such negative energy that at some point they contemplate suicide. I understand the Punjabi mentality. People will say, "Oh, well, this person is a coward for contemplating suicide." This has nothing to do with anyone being a coward. Sikhi recognizes the power of Sangha and its role in development of an individual. If practicing Sikhs are being led to feelings of wanting to commit suicide, then the hostile attitudes and behavior of community members around them has a lot to do with it. Khalsa is a model of Sikh existentialism. In the conclusive section of the thesis, I also explored the creation and early development of the Khalsa. The Khalsa is understood as a model of Sikh existentialism. Here's an excerpt from my paper. A remarkable event in the history of the Sikhs occurs in 1699 in the creation of the Khalsa, an entity capable of making and remaking its own laws. This very capability is inherent in Sikh existentialism. As Mandir warns though, the Khalsa's access to power remains legitimate only if it remains true to Guru Nanak's and Guru Gobind Singh's sovereign principle, the constant need to undermine the self, the remembrance of absolute self-surrender. Once it forgets this paradoxical principle, it self-destructs. An aspect of the early form of the Khalsa to understand is the following. In the process of Sarvat Khalsa meeting, the Nihangs or Akalis, who usually presided over these meetings, zealously guarded the right of the humblest of the Sikhs to speak his mind and to give his opinion. As a Sikh, what I'm at last suggesting is the need of nothing short of a revolution in regards to the organization of the community itself. That current-day Sikh activists could learn much from the early formative period of the Khalsa and use their creativity to find ways to implement its principles within the Sikh community. To be clear, this is not a call for Khalistan. That is not what I mean by learning from the early formative period of the Khalsa. What I am stating is that there is a need for a model of representation in which populations from the diaspora and the homeland are represented, and in which no discrimination is made on any societal basis, whether gender or sexuality. Only when such a representation is constructed will the model of Sikh existentialism, centered on the concept and role of Guru, be realized today. Once such a model of representation has been reimagined and recreated, open discussions and decisions can be made about issues such as homosexuality by the community and for the community. In the words of Nikki Singh, rather than boast, we should internalize the spirit of a Sakhi. The ideas that have the most powerful hold upon us are not those we think about. The most powerful ideas are those we think with. They're the ideas that lie behind our eyes, enabling us to see. What we do see is shaped by them. I believe that if we keep the liberating practice of the Sakhi 1699 behind our eyes, we will instantly start doing something about the problems facing the Sikh community in a real way. Our rememory is not a superficial celebration of Guru Gobind Singh's accomplishment 3 centuries ago. It is changing our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions today. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa.